All right, let's get into it. We are swimming in a sea of really powerful messages these days, right? Everyone has a vision for the future, for AI, for spirituality. And these messages, they make us feel something. They're inspiring. But what if we looked past the feeling for a second? What's the actual function of these ideas? That's what we're going to unpack today. So let's kick things off with this really powerful thought from the futurist 19 Keys. His whole argument is that now, in an age where a machine can do almost anything, the things that make us human, well, they've become our superpowers. Our imagination, our ability to tell a compelling story, that's the new currency. This really sets the stage for what the visionaries are seeing. And when we talk about these visionaries, we're really looking at two major lanes. On one side, you have the tech futurists like 19 Keys, who see tools like AI as a launchpad for human creativity. And on the other side, well, that's a much more spiritual vision. Let's start with the tech. You know, what's so interesting about how 19 Keys talks about AI is that he completely flips the script. He says, look, trying to master every single new AI tool that comes out is a fool's game. They're changing too fast. The real skill, the one that lasts, is learning how to use your own mind, how to think, how to imagine something so clearly that an AI can then build it for you. In his world, AI isn't here to replace you. It's here to amplify you. It takes over the doing so you can focus on the being. That's a huge shift from just making content to actually building entire worlds from your imagination. Okay, so if 19 Keys is about building these incredible worlds outside of us, our next thinker, Ralph Smart, is all about understanding the universe inside of us. He's on the spiritual side of the coin. But you'll see there's a really interesting overlap here. They're both on a quest to unlock what humans are truly capable of. And this is it. This is the absolute core of Ralph Smart's entire message. For him, a real awakening isn't some secret you learn or a meditation you master. It's a fundamental shift in how you see everything. It's that aha moment when you realize that the idea that we're all separate, that's the illusion. The truth is, it's all connected. And this just illustrates his point so perfectly. Smart points to these patterns in nature, the old idea of as above, so below, as proof. I mean, look at this. Is it just a wild coincidence that a nebula looks like a human eye, or that a lightning strike perfectly mirrors the root system of a tree? He argues, no, that's not a coincidence. That's the signature of a universal design, a deep connection that's woven into the fabric of reality itself. Okay, and here's where we pivot. Because let's be honest, the visions from both 19 Keys and Rob Smart feel amazing. They're inspiring, they give you hope, they resonate with millions. But this is the moment we have to pause and ask the hard question. Beyond the goosebumps and the inspiration, what is the message actually doing? What's its purpose? What is its function? And that very question brings us to a completely different way of thinking, from a guy named Jonathan M. Kayomba. He basically says, if you really want to understand a message, you have to do something radical. You have to ignore how it makes you feel and instead take it apart like a mechanic and analyze its structure. So Kayomba introduces this idea he calls sentimental theater. Think of it as communication that's designed purely for an emotional reaction. It makes you feel connected, inspired, understood. But, and this is the critical part, it's often structured in a way that you need to keep coming back to the source, to that speaker or that channel, to get that emotional hit again and again. Now, the polar opposite of that is what he calls sovereign function. This kind of message isn't about making you feel good. It's about activating something inside you, giving you a tool, a skill, a new capability. And here's the crazy part. The ultimate goal of a sovereign message is to make itself obsolete. It succeeds when you, the listener, are so empowered that you never need to listen to that message again. And that sharp distinction right there leads us straight into Kayomba's biggest critique, something he calls the dependency trap. He argues that a lot of motivational content, even when it has the best intentions, can accidentally create the very cycle of dependency it claims it wants to break. I mean, think about that. Is the motivation you're getting a one-time vaccine that makes you immune to the problem? Or is it a prescription you have to get refilled every single week from the same doctor? Kayomba's point is that if a message of awakening really truly worked, it would equip you to fly on your own, not teach you to keep coming back to the nest. And he actually maps out how this can happen. It starts off harmlessly, right? You're a listener and you find a message that really clicks. But if that message is sentimental theater, you might become a follower, relying on that source for your weekly dose of feeling good. Pretty soon, that can turn into dependency. You need it. And that's when Kayomba says a huge shift happens. You're no longer just the audience. You've become the product in an ecosystem that runs on keeping you dependent.
This breaks it down perfectly into two simple equations. On the left, you've got the hamster wheel. Motivation that leads to more dependency is ultimately a failure. It feels like you're running, but you're not getting anywhere. But on the right, you have the escape ladder. Motivation that leads to more autonomy, more independence. Now that is true function. That's the model where the goal isn't to keep you around, but to launch you into your own orbit.
So, okay, this is all pretty heavy. How do we actually tell the difference in the real world? Well, Kayomba doesn't just diagnose the problem. He gives us a toolkit to solve it. He calls it a truth-first architecture, and it's a super practical framework you can use to analyze literally any message that comes your way. So here are the ground rules. First, you have to figure out what you're even listening to. Is it a verifiable fact, a model, a belief, or just pure speculation? That's rule number one. Second, always put function before feeling. Ask yourself, what does this message actually let me do? Then there's the big scientific test. If there's no way to prove a claim false, then it can't be called a fact, period. And finally, ask the two killer questions. Does this make me more independent? And could this idea survive a tough cross-examination from a scientist, an economist, and a philosopher? Let's actually put this framework to work. You've probably heard this claim that the heart is 100,000 times more powerful than the brain. It feels true. It's a beautiful sentiment. But when you put it under structural scrutiny, it falls apart. It's a misreading of data about electromagnetic fields. Or how about the idea that fluoride in tap water calcifies your pineal gland and blocks spirituality? Again, it's a compelling story, but scientifically, there's just no basis for it. This is the framework in action. It separates what feels good from what's actually real. And it's so important to get this next part. The point of this kind of thinking isn't to become a cynic who doesn't believe in anything. Not at all. Kiyoma would argue the goal is actually the opposite. It's about making sure that the things you do choose to believe in are built on a foundation of solid rock, not on sand that can be washed away by the next emotional wave. So, after all of that, where do we land? We've seen the incredible power of visionary thinking, and we've seen the absolute necessity of rigorous structural analysis. The final step is putting them together. It's about cultivating a sovereign mind, one that's inspired, for sure, but also fiercely independent. This chart really lays out the whole journey. We often start with sentiment, right? A message connects with us emotionally. That's the hook. But we can't stop there. The next crucial step is to apply that structural lens, to analyze the logic. And the final stage, the real goal, is synthesis. Taking the best of both, the inspiration and the logic, and turning it into your own independent, sovereign action. Look, at the end of the day, this isn't about vision versus function. That's a false choice. The most powerful people are the ones who can do both. They have the wild, visionary creativity to imagine a better world, like a 19 Keys, but they ground every single one of those dreams in the hard, structural reality that a Kayomba would demand. It's simple, really. Dream like an artist, but build like an engineer. So I'll leave you with this one thing to think about. The next time you're listening to a podcast, watching a video, or reading a book that really moves you, just pause and ask yourself this simple question. Am I here for activation, or am I here for affirmation? Am I looking for a tool to build something new, or a comforting voice telling me I'm okay right where I am? The answer to that question might just change everything.